"You should run, human," she laughed. His answer made her blood run cold. Voices from a dozen species mixed together, sharp clicks, low hums, and soft human words blending into constant noise. For most beings, it was a place of business. For some, it was a place of power. Elia's ward moved through the crowd with slow, careful steps. He wore simple human clothing, dark and practical, with no visible weapons or rank markings. To most eyes, he looked like what the galaxy believed humans were: fragile, quiet, and easily ignored. He carried a small data case in one hand, his other hand relaxed at his side. His expression was calm, almost tired, as if nothing in this place could surprise him anymore. Around him, aliens parted without thinking, not out of respect, but because he did not matter to them. At the center of the main concourse, a group had gathered. Voices were raised, and tension hung thick in the air. Elias slowed when he saw armored figures pushing through the crowd. Their armor was black and silver, shaped to fit tall, sharp bodies with long limbs and glowing red eyes. They were members of the Varkesh Dominion, a species feared across the outer systems. Leading them was Commander Vierxa. She stood taller than most, her posture straight and confident. Her armor bore marks of past battles, each one carefully polished. Her eyes scanned the crowd with open hunger, not for food but for fear. She enjoyed moments like this, places where everyone watched, where power could be displayed without question. A smaller alien lay on the floor near her feet, shaking. It was a merchant species, soft-bodied and harmless. Vierxa's claw rested lightly against the being's throat. "You violated Dominion transit law," she said, her voice smooth and sharp. "Smuggling restricted materials." The merchant tried to speak, but only managed a weak sound. Elias stopped a few steps away. He had seen scenes like this before, many times. Usually he kept walking. Today he did not. He looked at the merchant, then at Vierxa. His face showed no anger, only focus. "That cargo was cleared by station authority," Elias said calmly. His voice was not loud, but it carried. The crowd shifted. A human voice cutting into a Dominion enforcement action was unexpected. Vierxa turned slowly. Her eyes locked onto Elias, scanning him from head to toe. No armor, no weapon, no signs of threat. She laughed. The sound was sharp and mocking, echoing through the concourse. "A human," she said, speaking out of turn. Her claw lifted slightly, reminding everyone how close the merchant was to death. "This does not concern you." "It does," Elias replied. "You're wrong." Another wave of laughter rippled through the Varkesh soldiers. Some of the crowd stepped back, sensing danger. Humans were known to be emotional, unpredictable. Many expected Elias to beg or retreat. Vierxa stepped closer, towering over him. She leaned down until her glowing eyes were inches from his face. "You should run, human," she said, smiling wide. "I'll even give you a head start. It will make this more entertaining." The crowd went silent. Elias did not move. He did not raise his hands. He did not look away. He met her gaze, steady and unafraid. "If I run," he said softly, "you won't survive the consequences." For a heartbeat, no one reacted. Then Vierxa laughed again, louder than before. "Did you hear that?" she called to her soldiers. "The human thinks he's dangerous." Her claw tapped lightly against Elias' chest. "You are nothing. Your species hides behind treaties and words. You survive because stronger beings allow it." Elias looked down at her claw, then back at her eyes. "You confuse restraint with weakness." The laughter faded slightly. Something in his tone had changed. It was still calm, but there was weight behind it, like a door closing. Vierxa straightened. "Enough," she said. "Seize him." Two soldiers stepped forward. Their hands moved fast, practiced. Energy restraints snapped around Elias' wrists before he could react. The merchant was thrown aside, gasping but alive. The crowd scattered, not wanting to be near what came next. Vierxa leaned close again. "You see," she whispered, "you should have run." Elias looked around at the soldiers, the cameras lining the walls, the sealed doors at the end of the concourse. "This station is under joint authority," he said. "You're making a mistake." "I make examples," Vierxa replied. "That is how order is kept." She turned and gestured. "Take him to holding." As Elias was pulled away, a few aliens watched with uneasy expressions. One older official, his skin paling, stared at Elias' face. Recognition flickered in his eyes. He opened his mouth as if to speak, then closed it, fear winning over duty. Elias noticed. He was dragged through corridors into the lower enforcement wing. The lights were dimmer here, the walls thicker. Vierxa followed at an unhurried pace, clearly enjoying herself. Inside the holding chamber, Elias was forced into a restraint field. Blue light wrapped around him, locking his body in place. The restraints on his wrists released, replaced by the field's invisible pressure. Vyerxa dismissed her soldiers, leaving only one guard outside the room. She circled Elias slowly. "Tell me," she said, "why did you interfere?" "Because you were going to kill someone," Elias replied. "That happens," Vyerxa said, "every day." "Not today." She paused, studying him. Humans usually showed fear by now, anger, tears. Elias showed none of it. "You don't seem afraid," she said. "I am careful," Elias replied. Vyerxa tilted her head. "Careful of what?" "Of wasting words." Her eyes narrowed. "You think yourself important." "No," Elias said. "I think actions matter." Vyerxa tapped a control panel. The field tightened slightly, pressing against Elias' chest. It was not enough to harm him, but enough to remind him of his position. "You will stay here," she said, "until I decide how public your end should be." She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. "Still," she added, glancing back, "if you change your mind, you can run, beg. Humans are good at that." Elias met her gaze one last time. "You should release me." She laughed softly and walked out. The door sealed shut. The chamber was quiet except for the low hum of the restraint field. Elias closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again. He focused. Far above the station, beyond the viewports and trade lanes, signals moved through space. Some were old, some newly awakened. Quiet systems began to adjust, tiny shifts that meant nothing on their own. On Karin's reach, a maintenance drone paused in its path, then rerouted. A station AI flagged a routine error and delayed a command by half a second. A human freighter in a nearby dock powered up without explanation. None of it drew attention. Back in the holding chamber, Vyerxa walked toward the observation room, satisfied. She believed the situation was under control. Humans always were, eventually. As she entered the control room, one of her officers looked uneasy. "Commander," he said, "station systems are responding slower than expected." "Local issue," Vyerxa replied. "Ignore it." The officer hesitated. "And there is a sealed file request coming through the network." "High-level encryption." "From who?" The officer swallowed. "Human origin." Vyerxa's smile thinned. "Let it wait." She looked through the observation window at Elias, standing quietly in the field. "You should have run," she muttered to herself. Elias opened his eyes and looked directly at the glass as if he could see her. His expression had not changed. But somewhere deep in the station's systems and far beyond it, things were already moving. And for the first time in many cycles, Commander Vyerxa felt a faint, unfamiliar chill crawl along her spine. The holding chamber remained quiet, but the station around it slowly changed. Small delays became longer pauses. Doors took an extra moment to open. Screens refreshed a little slower than usual. To most beings on Karin's reach, it felt like nothing more than routine malfunction. To those who understood systems, it felt like hesitation. Elias Ward stood inside the restraint field, breathing evenly. The pressure around him remained constant, not painful but firm. He had tested it once gently and confirmed what he already knew. Escape was possible but unnecessary. Not yet. Outside the chamber, Commander Vyerxa watched from behind the observation glass. Her arms were crossed, her expression confident, but her tail moved slightly from side to side. She did not like waiting. She liked control, and waiting felt too much like uncertainty. "You're sure he's just a logistics officer?" she asked without turning. "Yes, Commander," replied the officer beside her. "Human-civilian registry, no combat enhancements, no active military clearance." "Humans lie," Vyerxa said. "They document," the officer answered carefully. "Excessively." Vyerxa gave a short laugh. "Then this one documents his death." She turned and walked out, her boots echoing against the metal floor. She had other matters to attend to. The human could wait. As she moved through the enforcement wing, a junior station official hurried toward her. The official was thin, with pale skin and wide eyes, clearly nervous to be so close to a Dominion commander. "Commander Vyerxa," he said quickly, "there has been a request from Joint Authority to review the arrest." Vyerxa stopped. Slowly, she turned. "A request," she repeated. "Yes," the official said. "It is unusual. It cites interspecies conduct clauses." Vyerxa leaned closer, towering over him. "Do you know what happens to officials who interfere with Dominion enforcement?" The official swallowed. "Yes, Commander." "Then withdraw the request." I can't," the official said. "It's automated, high level. I don't have the clearance to cancel it." Vyerxa straightened. Then remove yourself. The official nodded quickly and almost ran away. Vyerxa continued down the corridor, her pace faster now. Irritation burned beneath her calm exterior. Humans were not supposed to cause complications. They were supposed to complain quietly or submit. Inside the holding chamber, Elias shifted his weight slightly. He watched the faint reflection of the observation glass. He could tell when someone was watching. Humans had learned long ago how to read spaces, not just faces. He spoke softly, knowing the audio sensors would pick it up. "You're starting to feel it now," he said. Vyerxa heard his voice through the feed and stopped in her tracks. She turned back toward the chamber, anger flashing in her eyes. "Feel what?" she demanded, activating the channel. "Pressure," Elias replied, "the kind you can't threaten away." Vyerxa stepped into the observation room again. "You think a few system delays frighten me?" "No," Elias said, "I think you don't know what's happening yet." She stared at him through the glass. "Explain." Elias shook his head slightly. "You wouldn't believe me." "Try," she said. "Humans learned a long time ago that strength invites challenge," Elias said. "So we built something else." "And what is that?" Vyerxa asked. "Consequences," he answered. Before she could reply, an alert chimed in the control room. One of the officers stiffened. "Commander," the officer said, "we have a docking dispute in Bay 7. Human vessel refusing inspection." Vyerxa waved it off. "Then deny departure." "They're not requesting departure," the officer said slowly. "They're requesting arbitration." Vyerxa frowned. "Over what?" "Over the arrest," the officer replied. Silence filled the room. "How many humans are on this station?" Vyerxa asked. The officer checked the display. His eyes widened slightly. "Officially 42. "Officially," Vyerxa repeated. "And unofficially," the officer hesitated. "Unknown." Vyerxa's jaw tightened. Humans were good at being unnoticed. Too good. She looked back at Elias. "You planned this." "I expected it," Elias said. "There's a difference." Vyerxa turned away sharply. "Increase restraint pressure. I want him uncomfortable." The officer hesitated. "Commander, Joint Authority, do it." The field tightened. Elias felt the pressure increase, pressing against his chest and shoulders. He exhaled slowly, his face tightening for a brief moment before relaxing again. "That won't change the outcome," he said quietly. Vyerxa ignored him and strode out again. As she moved deeper into the station, more reports came in. A supply corridor sealed itself due to a safety override. A patrol drone failed to respond to recall commands. The station AI requested clarification on conflicting legal directives. Vyerxa reached the central operations hub. The atmosphere was tense. Officers whispered among themselves. Screens displayed scrolling text and warning symbols. "What is going on?" she demanded. A senior technician looked up. "Commander, multiple subsystems are receiving encrypted instructions. They appear legal in nature." "Legal?" Vyerxa snapped. "From who?" The technician hesitated. "From several sources, human trade councils, independent arbitration networks. Even council-adjacent observers." Vyerxa's eyes narrowed. "They move fast." "Yes," the technician said, "and very quietly." Back in the holding chamber, Elias closed his eyes again. His breathing remained steady, but his mind was active. He was listening not to sounds, but to timing. Every human on the station was doing the same, whether they knew it or not. In a medical bay, a human doctor paused mid-step, then turned and left without explanation. In a cargo hold, two human engineers shut down a loader and walked away. In a small cafe, a human woman paid her bill early and sent a short message from a private terminal. None of them spoke to Elias. None of them needed to. Vyerxa returned to the observation room, her patience wearing thin. "Release the human," she ordered suddenly. The officer blinked. "Commander." "Temporarily," Vyerxa said. "I want to speak to him directly." The officer deactivated the field. The pressure vanished. Elias took one step forward, rolling his shoulders slightly, then stood still. Two guards raised their weapons, but Vyerxa lifted a hand. "Stand down." Elias looked at her, free now, but still surrounded. "You're causing disruption," Vyerxa said. "Enough to attract attention." "That was always going to happen," Elias replied. "You think this ends well for you?" she asked. Elias considered her for a moment. "I think it depends on what you do next." Her eyes flicked to the guards, then back to him. "You are alone." Elias shook his head. "No human is ever truly alone." An alarm sounded softly in the control room. Not an emergency alarm, but a priority signal. The officer checked it and froze. "Commander," he said, his voice low, "we have an incoming communication." From who? Vierxa demanded. The officer swallowed. Galactic Council Observation Relay. Vierxa felt something twist in her chest. Council observers did not involve themselves in minor enforcement actions, not unless something had gone very wrong. She looked at Elias again. His expression was calm, almost gentle. You should have run, she said, but the words sounded weaker now. Elias met her gaze. I told you, he replied. Humans don't run when running makes things worse. The screen lit up, displaying the council insignia. The officer hesitated before accepting the transmission. As the signal connected, Vierxa realized something she had never considered before. The human had never tried to escape. He had only been waiting. And whatever was coming next, it was already far beyond her control. The council insignia faded from the screen, leaving the operations room quieter than before. No one spoke for several long seconds. Commander Vierxa stood very still, her eyes fixed on the dark display. She had faced enemies before. She had crushed rebellions and broken fleets. But this silence felt heavier than any battle alarm. Finally, the screen lit again. A neutral voice filled the room, calm and measured. Commander Vierxa of the Varkesh Dominion. This is Council Observation Node 17. Your recent actions are under review. Vierxa straightened. On what grounds? She demanded. This is a routine enforcement matter. Routine matters do not trigger multi-network arbitration requests, the voice replied. Nor do they disrupt station governance across 3 sectors. Vierxa clenched her claws. This disruption is not my doing. Correct, the voice said. It originates from human-linked legal frameworks. Vierxa turned sharply toward Elias, who stood a few steps away, hands relaxed at his sides. He did not smile. He did not look proud. He simply listened. You planned this, Vierxa said again, her voice lower now. I prepared for it, Elias replied. There's still a difference. The council voice continued. Commander, the human detained under your authority has been identified as Elias Ward, Registered Logistics Coordinator, Human Systems Cooperative. Vierxa laughed sharply. A civilian. Yes, the voice agreed. A civilian operating under emergency contingency clearance. The room shifted. Officers exchanged looks. Vierxa felt heat rise beneath her armor. What contingency? She demanded. Human Contingency Protocol 12, the voice said. Trigger condition, unlawful detention or termination risk of human civilian under joint authority jurisdiction. Vierxa's eyes widened slightly before she forced control back into her expression. I was not informed of such a protocol. You were not meant to be, the voice replied. The protocol exists to prevent escalation. Vierxa let out a slow breath. Escalation from what? One human? The voice paused just long enough to be unsettling. From humanity. Elias shifted his stance slightly. He was very aware of every eye in the room, but his focus remained on Vierxa. You see, he said calmly, we learned early that reacting loudly makes others nervous, so we built systems that react quietly instead. Vierxa turned fully toward him now. You hide behind laws and machines. Elias shook his head. No, we hide people behind them. Another alert chimed. This time multiple screens lit up at once. Trade routes blinked yellow, then red. Access permissions updated in real time. A technician spoke, his voice tight. Commander, Dominion priority access on this station has been downgraded. What? Vierxa snapped. Joint authority override, the technician said. Temporary but comprehensive. Vierxa slammed a claw into the console, denting the metal. You cannot strip my authority. The council voice answered. Authority is shared, Commander, and your actions place that balance at risk. Vierxa's mind raced. This was no longer about control of a station. This was about reputation, about standing. If the Dominion appeared reckless, the council would remember. She looked back at Elias. Call them off. I can't, Elias said. You started this, she growled. I triggered a safeguard, he replied. It runs on rules, not orders. The council voice continued. Commander Vierxa, you are instructed to release the human civilian immediately and submit a full incident report. Vierxa's jaw tightened. And if I refuse? There was another pause. This one felt colder. Then additional protocols will activate, the voice said. Economic. Diplomatic, strategic. Vierxa understood those words. They were not threats, they were descriptions. She looked around the room. Her officers avoided her gaze. They were loyal but not foolish. They could feel the shift too. Elias stepped forward slightly. This can still end quietly. Vyerxa laughed, but the sound was strained. Quietly, you've already humiliated me. Elias met her eyes. No, you did that yourself when you chose fear over caution. For a moment, it looked like she might strike him. The guards tensed. But Vyerxa did nothing. Slowly, she turned back to the control panel. Release the human, she said. The officer moved quickly, unlocking the final security markers. Elias felt the last restrictions lift. He was free. The council voice spoke again. Commander, this matter will be reviewed further. Cooperation will be noted. The screen went dark. The room remained silent. Vyerxa turned to face Elias one last time. This isn't over, she said. Elias nodded. It never is. That's why we prepare. She studied him, really studied him now, not as prey, not as an annoyance, but as something unfamiliar. You're not a soldier, she said. No, Elias agreed. Then what are you? Elias considered the question. Someone whose job is to make sure things don't fall apart. Vyerxa scoffed. By breaking them first? By reminding people where the edges are, he replied. Outside the operations hub, the station slowly returned to normal. Systems resumed their usual speed. Doors opened on time. Drones followed commands again. To most beings, it felt like a storm that had passed without rain. But the memory remained. As Elias walked through the corridor, humans he passed did not look at him. They did not nod or smile. They simply continued on their way. Their part was already done. In a private chamber, Vyerxa stood alone, staring at a star map. Human trade routes glowed softly across it, threading through space like veins. She replayed the moment in the concourse again and again. The laughter, the confidence, the warning she had ignored. You should run, human, she whispered to the empty room. She understood now how foolish that had been. Humans did not run because they did not need to. They built the ground so that others could not chase them without falling. And as the station lights dimmed into artificial night, Commander Vyerxa realized something that unsettled her more than any enemy ever had. The human had never threatened her life. He had only shown her how small her control truly was. The station of Karen's Reach slowly returned to its normal rhythm. Trade lanes reopened. Ships departed and arrived on schedule. Voices once again filled the corridors, layered and chaotic. To most beings, the incident became just another disturbance in a place that saw many. But for Commander Vyerxa, nothing felt normal. She stood alone on an observation deck, staring out at the stars. Her reflection in the glass looked unchanged, tall, armored, powerful. Yet something inside her had shifted. Power no longer felt absolute. It felt conditional. Behind her, soft footsteps approached. An aide stopped a respectful distance away. Commander, he said, the council has finalized its notice. Vyerxa did not turn. Read it. The Dominion has been issued a formal caution, the aide said carefully. No penalties, but the record will remain. Vyerxa closed her eyes briefly. A caution was worse than a fine. It was memory. It was precedent. And the human? She asked. He has departed the station, the aide replied. No escort, no announcement. Vyerxa opened her eyes. Of course. Elias Ward walked through Dock 12 without drawing attention. He carried the same small data case, his pace steady. A human freighter waited for him, plain and unmarked. Its hull bore no weapons, no symbols of status. A dock worker glanced at him, hesitated, then looked away. That was how humans preferred it. As Elias stepped onto the boarding ramp, the ship's AI greeted him softly. Welcome back, Elias. Status? He asked. All systems nominal, the AI replied. Contingency protocols have been disengaged. Elias nodded. Good. The ramp closed behind him, sealing the ship. As it lifted from the dock, Karen's Reach shrank beneath the viewport. Elias did not look back. Across the station, rumors spread quietly. Not dramatic stories of battles or destruction, but whispers. A Dominion commander had overreached. A human had stood still and won. No shots fired. No blood spilled. That made it more unsettling. In the days that followed, small changes rippled outward. Dominion patrols began requesting joint confirmation more often. Station authorities reread human-related clauses more carefully. Council observers adjusted their risk models. Humanity's ranking on the survival index did not change. Its threat assessment quietly did. On a distant council world, a chamber filled with representatives from many species. They watched a playback of the incident, stripped of emotion, reduced to data points and timelines. One representative leaned forward. The human did not retaliate. Another nodded. He did not need to. A third asked the question many were thinking. What happens if one of them is actually harmed? Silence followed, then a calm voice answered. We do not find out. Back aboard the human freighter, Elias sat alone at a small table. He opened his data case and removed a simple device. It displayed a list of names, locations, and green status indicators, all clear. He exhaled slowly and closed the device. For him, the matter was finished. That was the human way. Preparation, response, closure. He stood and looked out at the stars as the ship entered faster than light travel. The universe stretched ahead, vast and indifferent, and yet shaped. On Karin's reach, Commander Vyerxa received a final message. It was not from the Council or the Dominion. It was from a junior officer she barely remembered. Commander, the message read, I've reviewed the human files you requested. There are more protocols than we thought, many more. Vyerxa stared at the screen for a long time before replying. How many? She typed. The response came quickly. All of them, it said. They don't name their limits, they name their responses. Vyerxa closed the message. She thought of Elia's calm voice, his stillness. The way the station itself had seemed to hesitate around him. For the first time in her life, she understood the difference between dominance and deterrence. Dominance demanded proof. Deterrence required only belief. Weeks later, in a small human settlement on the edge of explored space, Elias disembarked from his ship. The air was thin but breathable. The settlement was quiet, functional, unremarkable. A child ran past him, laughing. A woman waved from a doorway. Life continued. Elias set his case down inside a modest building and sat by the window. He allowed himself a moment of rest. Somewhere far away, predators still laughed, still threatened, still tested. That was fine. Humans had never tried to control the galaxy. They had only made one thing clear. If you chased them, you would learn how carefully they had prepared the ground beneath your feet.